All right. Take it easy. My name is Dano. I own Prismic Studios. I've got 3 games on Steam and 3 games in the Oculus store. And I own Prismic Studios, like I was saying. We're a music production facility, and we do videos and game development, all that stuff. But today what I want to talk to you guys about is my personal favorite game development philosophy, or game design philosophy, which uses the idea of gameplay loops. And so first, a gameplay loop is like a situation that you put your player in that has a rising action and a satisfying conclusion. And every game is full of them. And the biggest and longest gameplay loop is the entire game. And so your player will have taken 2 loops through that loop if they beat your game twice. Then the big loop is comprised of several smaller loops. Say like in an older Mario game or any of the Mario games, you have like a fire world and an ice world. And so each one of those worlds is going to be its own loop. And maybe the entire game loop is made up of 5 of those. But each one is going to have this rising action, and you're going to have kind of a boss at the end of that world, which you beat, and you get some prize and get to move on. So that's one of those other loops. Then on even smaller than that, you have the individual levels. And at the end of that, there's going to be some kind of a satisfying payoff. But then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, where each individual level is made up of 5 kind of objective loops. Get the key and take it to the door. That's one loop. Of course, it gets smaller than that, where you're at the level of an individual door just opening. You know, you see a door, you push a button, the door opens. Or like in Mario, for instance, the jump. So what kind of loops do you guys think the player is going to have to go through the most times? The big ones or the small ones? Small ones, right? So that means that say in a Mario game, you jump 800,000 times by the time you're done playing it for your life. And you may have beaten the entire game 10 times in all of those playthroughs. Well, they experienced one loop 10 times, and they experienced the other loop 800,000 times. So which loop is more important? The smaller loop, because that's what they have to go through again and again and again. And so my philosophy in designing games is you start from the most important and smallest loop. So of course, it's completely up to you, but what I like to start with is just if I was to make Mario, the first thing I would do is program that jump and the running around. And I would spend a couple months just on the movement and just on the jump, because that small aspect is going to be experienced so many more times. And so in a Mario game, for instance, the payoff is when he lands, he goes into a separate animation, which is like this recovery. And so that payoff, feeling absolutely perfect, is worth you spending an entire month on that single one small mechanic. Now, going through a door, he might go through 3 doors per level, but he's jumped 5,000 times. So that jump is still just worlds ahead in importance and the time and detail. So if you just kind of rush through it thinking, oh man, this final boss fight is going to be like the coolest thing ever, but most players are only going to do that final boss fight 4 times, but they're going to remember how it felt to jump and move. And if your jump sucks, your game sucks. And so I guess that is the final point of what I was coming here to talk about with gameplay loops. Short and sweet. Do you guys have any questions about game design or anything like that?
$100 million games that could learn to do that a little better.
They could, couldn't they? This is just personal opinion, and I might make people mad at me or something, but I think that the more people that are involved in a project, the more fault lines there are in that project. But of course, you know, one person can't make Mario Odyssey or Breath of the Wild. You know, that is obviously like an orchestra production. You need 100 people. And so, yeah, I agree with you. Working on teams can be tough. And then those huge budgets, people like, you got the people that have the money are telling the people who really know how to do things different things than what they think should be done, and it's chaos. But that's not what I came to talk about. Anyway, so any questions, anything? Gameplay loops. Focus, yes.
Do you have any suggestions like further repeating gameplay loops?
On further what?
Like any books about the subject? Or?
I don't know any books. I've heard somebody kind of mention it and break it down on a random YouTube video that I watched a long time ago, and I really like took it to heart. And because I realized at that moment, like, yeah, that little thing that you're doing over and over and over is a billion times more important than your boss fight mechanic.
Right.
And so I guess my main point is just don't skip through those things and design starting with, like, put them on a list. What do you do the most often? What do you do the least often in your gameplay? And then just take your time and make sure it's all perfect from that perspective.
So you think like being a musician, because that's basically how I talk about like phrase and structure,
Mhm.
specific development that you're using.
Yeah.
Talking about specific development, you have a small piece and then you're making a big piece out of it.
Yeah.
Is that how you kind of think about it?
Absolutely. Okay, so as an artist, my biggest thing ever since I went to film school, like I randomly went to film school to kind of round myself out, and then I jumped right into game development and only made one film. But then the most important thing is that you have this, it's the same, it's a loop. It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so like for instance, when I write an entire like game story, what I do is I open up a Google Doc and then I set it to bullet points and I say beginning, middle, and end. Then I expand the beginning and I write beginning, middle, and end of the beginning. Now the middle, beginning, middle, and end. End, beginning, middle, and end. And I find a one sentence version of what happened. Beginning, Peach got kidnapped. Middle, Bowser goes on quest to save Peach. End, Mario saves Peach. I messed it up, but Mario saves Peach. But then the beginning of the beginning is going to describe your cutscenes, or the beginning, middle, and end of the beginning is going to be that process. And then you can write the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, the beginning, middle, and end of the beginning of the beginning. But if you layer it out that way, and then you can write, what's happening in all of these places. And yeah, that's another thing, the beginning, middle, and end. I had like 4 things that I could have talked about, and that was one of the other ones.
It's cool. It's like I kind of talk on the same way. How I talk with my students. It's like
Yeah.
zoom in, zoom out. It's got to be good at every zoom.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Because it's a fractal.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. And then